Hello, friends. Tonight, we embark on an invigorating yet calming journey, a voyage to the rugged shores of Scandinavia, stepping into the boots of a Viking Shieldmaiden. Isn't it intriguing, thinking about how life was for these warrior women as they navigated both battles and bedtime? Before we set sail, if you find these historical voyages soothing, please hit the like button and subscribe. It helps to keep our ship afloat. Also, I'd be thrilled to hear where you're listening in from and what time it is where you are. It's always a delight to know who's drifting off to sleep with us from across the globe. So, settle in, perhaps light a candle for that cozy ambience, and let's gently dive into tonight's adventure. Welcome to your life as a Viking Shieldmaiden. Imagine you're a Viking Shieldmaiden now. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but stick with me, decked out in your sturdy leather armor, the cool Nordic wind blowing through your braided hair. You're grasping your shield in one hand and a finely crafted sword in the other, ready to face whatever comes at you. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Shieldmaidens, you see, were female warriors renowned for their bravery and martial skills in Nordic folklore and Norse mythology. They were depicted as fighting alongside male warriors in battles with as much courage, if not more, as their male counterparts. It's like that friend of yours who not only matches you in your marathon Netflix sessions, but also challenges you to one more episode when you're teetering on the edge of sleep. One might even say these shield maidens were the early embodiment of female empowerment. They were the Valkyries of the mortal world. Valkyries, by the way, were mythical entities who had the power to choose who lived and died in battle. Talk about women making the tough calls. Literary works, especially sagas like the Volsunga saga and the Hervarar saga, are rife with tales of these formidable female warriors. They are all about bravery, strength, and a never back down attitude. One such saga talks about Brynhildr, a Valkyrie, who was not only sent to Earth to marry a mortal man, but also fought in battles. It's like being a full-time CEO and a part-time MMA fighter, only the stakes here were quite a bit higher. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Did these shield maidens actually exist? Well, that's a conundrum that's been keeping historians and scholars up at night for years. While there's no concrete evidence to prove their existence in Viking Age Scandinavia, some intriguing clues suggest women may have had a role in warfare. Imagine we're in the year 750, no Netflix, no memory foam mattresses, just raw, unfiltered history. The Byzantine historian John Skylitz's notes that women fought on the side of the Danes at the Battle of Bravelir. If that's not a nod to the possible existence of shield maidens, I don't know what is. Even more fascinating is the Viking Age grave BJ 581 in Birka, Sweden. Now, this wasn't just any grave. It contained the remains of a woman buried with a sword and other military equipment. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think they buried folks with their favorite board games back then. Fast forward to today, and shield maidens have been resurrected in popular culture. You'll find them in films, TV series like Vikings, where Ladritha, a shield maiden, steals the show with her prowess. They even feature in video games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you can step into the boots of a shield maiden yourself, minus the harsh Nordic winds and the very real possibility of an axe nicking your ear, of course. So, as we meander through the rugged landscapes of Norse mythology and tread lightly on the cobblestones of historical probability, we find ourselves captivated by these shield maidens. These female warriors, whether real or mythical, resonate with us in a world where we're constantly battling our own metaphorical dragons. So next time you're facing a challenge, whether it's a tough day at work, a flat tire in the rain, or simply the daunting task of getting out of a cozy bed on a cold morning, channel your inner shield maiden. Remember, you're as brave as Brynhildr, as resilient as Ladrtha. And who knows, perhaps there's a bit of the Valkyrie in you too. Imagine being a Viking shield maiden. Your day starts with the chill of the Nordic winds biting your cheeks, your fingers gripping the wooden handle of your shield, your heart pounding with the anticipation of a forthcoming battle. This is no ordinary day at work, but when you're a shield maiden, the extraordinary becomes the norm. Take Brynhildr, for instance. This legendary shield maiden from the Volsunga saga is not just a warrior, but a Valkyrie sent to Earth to marry a mortal man. Talk about multitasking, but let's step back a bit. What's a Valkyrie, you ask? Well, picture your worst nightmare dressed in full battle gear, deciding who lives and dies in battle, and then whisking away the dead warriors to the afterlife. That's a Valkyrie for you. And Brynhildr, well, she's just a Valkyrie with a spouse on the side. Now, you might think, surely these shield maidens are just a product of Norse mythology, right? Well, not so fast. While the historical existence of shield maidens is a topic of hot debate among historians and scholars, there is some evidence that suggests these fierce female warriors might have been more than just figments of our ancestors' imagination. Take, for example, the Battle of Bravelir. This was a real historical battle that took place in 750, and according to the Byzantine historian John Skylitzes, women fought on the side of the Danes. And they weren't just there to cheer their men on, they were in the thick of it, fighting, and probably swearing in Old Norse, just like their male counterparts. Then there's the Viking Age grave BJ 581 in Birka, Sweden. This grave was found to contain the remains of a woman buried with a sword and other military equipment. While we can't say for certain that this woman was a shield maiden, we can't deny the possibility either. After all, it's not every day that you find a woman buried with a sword, unless she knew how to use it. Now, while these archaeological findings do not provide concrete proof of the existence of shield maidens, they do stir the imagination. Picture a woman, strong and fierce, standing shoulder to shoulder with her male counterparts on the battlefield, not as a damsel in distress, but as a warrior in her own right. In the modern world, shield maidens continue to capture our imagination. We see them in films. We watch them on TV shows like Vikings, where Ladrtha, a shield maiden, commands the screen with her battle prowess. We even get to embody them in video games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And while these depictions may lack the harsh Nordic winds and the very real chance of an axe injury, they do offer us a glimpse into the lives of these legendary female warriors. So as we navigate the rugged terrains of our daily challenges, remember the Shieldmaidens. They fought not just with their physical strength, but with their courage, their resilience, their determination. They were women who stepped onto the battlefield, not because it was expected of them, but because they chose to. They were shield maidens, the embodiment of bravery, strength, and a willingness to fight. So the next time you're facing a challenge, whether it's a tough day at work, a flat tire on a rainy day, or just the daunting task of getting out of a warm bed on a cold morning, channel your inner shield maiden. Be as brave as Brynhildr, as resilient as Ladritha. And remember, you might just have a bit of the Valkyrie in you too. Can you imagine waking up, not to the shrill sound of an alarm clock, but to the sharp chill of a Nordic morning, the distant roar of a turbulent sea, and the clatter of iron and wood as your fellow shield maidens prepare for combat? This was the daily reality for Brynhildr, a legendary figure from the Volsunga saga, known for her bravery, strength, and formidable skills on the battlefield. Brynhildr wasn't your average Viking woman. She was one of the Valkyries, a group of fierce female warriors, hand-selected by Odin, the chief of the gods, to decide which warriors lived and died in battle. Think of the Valkyries as the ancient equivalent of a VIP guest list for the afterlife. But Brynhildr wasn't content just deciding who got to party with Odin in Valhalla. She wanted to be in on the action herself. So Odin, in all his divine wisdom, sent Brynhildr to Earth to marry a mortal man. A somewhat unconventional honeymoon, you might say. But this wasn't a demotion, oh no. It was a chance for Brynhildr to prove her mettle, to stand toe-to-toe with the fiercest warriors of her age. And boy, did she excel. Brynhildr, with her shield in one hand and axe in the other, became a force to be reckoned with. She was a warrior on par with the strongest, most seasoned fighters, often outdoing them with her quick thinking and fearless approach to battle. Think of her as a Viking Age Wonder Woman, minus the invisible jet and with a touch more fur. Now, the question of whether shield maidens like Brynhildr ever really existed is a hot topic among historians. It's a bit like debating the existence of Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. Exciting, a little controversial, and with just enough evidence to keep the argument alive. Take, for example, the Battle of Bravelir in 750. A Byzantine historian, John Skylitzes, made a note that women were seen fighting on the Danish side. While he didn't specifically call them shield maidens, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? And then there's the Viking Age grave BJ 581 in Birka, Sweden. This grave was found to contain the remains of a woman, buried with a sword and other military gear. Now, we can't say for sure if she was a shield maiden, but it's a little suspicious, don't you think? Why would a woman be buried with a sword unless she knew how to use it? But let's not get too caught up in the facts and figures. After all, history is as much about the stories we tell as it is about the evidence we find. And the story of Brynhildr is one that deserves to be told. Picture a woman, strong and fierce, standing tall on a battlefield. She's not there because she has to be. She's there because she chooses to be. She's there to fight, to protect, to prove that she is every bit as capable as any man. This is Brynhildr, the Shieldmaiden. This is the spirit of the Valkyrie, living and breathing on the earth. So the next time you're facing a challenge, remember Brynhildr. Remember the Shieldmaidens. They were brave, they were strong, and they chose to fight, not because it was expected of them, but because they believed in themselves. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of the Shieldmaiden in all of us. So, grab your metaphorical shield, raise your imaginary axe, and face the day with the courage of a Valkyrie. Because whether you're battling a horde of Vikings or just trying to get through a tough day at work, we could all do with a little more Shieldmaiden in our lives. Imagine, if you will, the life of a Viking Shieldmaiden. It's not all about braiding hair and making jewelry, as some may think. It's essentially the Norse equivalent of living life on hard mode. You're a woman living in a time when everything is carved out of wood, and you're expected to chop down the trees yourself. You're not just a part of the community, you're a protector, a warrior, a Shieldmaiden. The life of a Shieldmaiden, much like the life of a Viking in general, is full of action, adventure, and a surprising amount of heavy lifting. Like carrying a shield that's just shy of the size of a dining table, for example. And it's not one of those light, modern dining tables either, but a sturdy, solid oak monster that you'd find in a Viking mead hall. Now, if you're wondering why a maiden would choose to lug around such a hefty piece of equipment, the answer lies in the word itself, Shieldmaiden. These women were not just warriors, but protectors. Their role was to shield their communities, their families, and their fellow warriors in times of conflict. But there's another layer to this title, one that ties the Shieldmaiden to the mythical world of Norse gods and goddesses. The Valkyries, divine beings, who would swoop down onto the battlefield to choose who lived and who died. It was believed that Valkyries had the power to decide the fate of warriors mid-battle. The fallen would be carried off to the afterlife, to the great hall of Valhalla, where they'd feast and fight forevermore. It's quite the job description, isn't it? Imagine being on your daily commute, and suddenly a divine being swoops down to whisk you off your feet. Only instead of a romantic getaway, you're being taken to an eternal feast in the afterlife. This connection to the Valkyries is a powerful part of the Shieldmaiden story. It's not just about being a warrior, but about having an influence over the battlefield that goes beyond physical strength. It's about standing between life and death, just as the Valkyries did. Take Brynhildr, for instance. She's a bit of a local celebrity in the Shieldmaiden world, a Valkyrie who was sent to Earth to marry a mortal man, but also a fierce warrior in her own right. She embodies this dual role perfectly, the earthly warrior and the divine chooser of the slain. Now, I know what you're thinking. Did these Shieldmaidens actually exist? Well, that's a topic of heated debate among historians and scholars. There isn't a lot of concrete evidence to prove their existence, but there are some tantalizing hints. A grave in Birka, Sweden, for example, was found to contain the remains of a woman buried with a sword and other military equipment. And then there's the account of the Byzantine historian John Skylitz's, who claimed that women fought alongside men at the Battle of Bravelir in 750. Whether these were shield maidens, as we imagine them, or simply women who took up arms to defend their homes, we may never know for sure. But it paints an intriguing picture of a time when women may have held more power and respect than we often credit them with. Shield maidens have even found their way into our popular culture. Have you ever watched the TV series Vikings? If so, you've probably met Lagertha, a shield maiden who can hold her own in any battle. And then there's the video game Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you can play as a female protagonist who is, you guessed it, a shield maiden. So the next time you're facing a challenge, whether it's a horde of Vikings or just a particularly tough day at work, channel your inner shield maiden. Stand tall, hold your ground, and remember, you have the strength of a warrior and the wisdom of a Valkyrie. All it takes is courage, determination, and perhaps a metaphorical shield. Imagine yourself as a Viking shield maiden, clad in battle-hardened armor, gripping a sword in one hand and a shield in the other. The wind whips through your hair as you stand shoulder to shoulder with your fellow warriors, ready to defend your land and your people. Now, before you start checking if your ancestry traces back to the Vikings, let's delve into the tantalizing debate over the historical existence of these fascinating female warriors. Remember the Volsunga saga I mentioned earlier? It's chock full of characters who put modern action heroes to shame. Take Brynhildr, for instance, a formidable Valkyrie who moonlights as a shield maiden. She's banished from the divine realm, forced to marry a mortal, and yet she still finds time to fight in battles. Talk about multitasking. However, despite the vivid narratives in these sagas, the hard evidence supporting the existence of shield maidens is as elusive as a cat on a hot tin roof. Some historians argue that the sagas are just that, stories. They consider them as a creative interpretation of the Norse culture and not an accurate historical record. After all, we don't consider every word of Game of Thrones as a factual account of medieval life, do we? On the other hand, there are a few tantalizing crumbs of evidence that suggest these warrior women could have been more than just figments of ancient imagination. Take the Byzantine historian John Skylitz's, who noted women fighting alongside men in the Battle of Bravelir in 750. Now, whether these were bona fide shield maidens or just women defending their homes, it's hard to say. But it's like finding a single puzzle piece in an empty box. It hints at a bigger picture. Another crumb comes from a grave in Birka, Sweden, codenamed BJ 581. Here, archaeologists found the remains of a woman buried with a sword, a shield, and a set of gaming pieces, the Viking equivalent of a PlayStation, if you will. This suggests that she may have been a warrior and a strategist. Again, it doesn't mean she was a shield maiden per se, but it does make you wonder, doesn't it? When it comes to popular culture, shield maidens are as common as hipsters in a coffee shop. Ladritha, the fierce shield maiden from the TV series Vikings, can outfight any man and still have time to rule as queen. And the video game Assassin's Creed Valhalla lets you play as Eivor, a Viking raider who just happens to be a woman. Coincidence? I think not. So while we may never have concrete proof of the existence of shield maidens, the debate continues. Just remember, next time you're facing a challenge, think of them. Whether they were real or not, the idea of a shield maiden, a woman who is strong, brave, and capable, can be a powerful source of inspiration. After all, history isn't just about what we can prove. It's about the stories we tell and the lessons we learn. Whether you're battling a difficult project at work, tackling a tricky problem, or just struggling to get out of bed on a Monday morning, channel your inner shield maiden. Who knows? Maybe there's a bit of Viking in all of us. Let's delve into the world of the Viking shield maiden, the Norse era's equivalent of a superheroine. Picture a woman as fierce and brave as Ladritha from the Vikings series, wielding a sword and charging into battle. But wait, this isn't some Hollywood depiction. It's an image drawn from historical accounts and archaeological findings. Now, before we get carried away, let's remember that the historical existence of these warrior women is a subject of debate among historians and scholars. You see, concrete evidence of the Vikings' female fighters, often referred to as shield maidens, is as elusive as a cat in a dark room. But that doesn't mean we should dismiss the idea out of hand. After all, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. One intriguing case in support of the shield maiden hypothesis comes from the Byzantine historian John Skylitzes. In his records, he mentions that women fought alongside men during the Battle of Bravelir in 750. This isn't a footnote or a passing comment. Skylitzes' account implies that these women were active participants in the battle, not just sideline supporters. If this is true, it's a pretty significant piece of the puzzle, akin to finding the corner piece in a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. However, let's not forget the other side of the coin. Other historians argue that such accounts could be exaggerated or even entirely fictional. After all, the Viking Age was a time of sagas and tales told around roaring fires, where a story's entertainment value might outweigh its factual accuracy. It's a bit like playing a game of telephone. By the time the story reaches the last person, it's turned from a woman helped with the war effort to a horde of shield maidens charging into battle. But let's not dismiss the possibility of shield maidens just yet. Another intriguing piece of evidence comes from the Viking Age grave BJ 581 in Birka, Sweden. This wasn't just any grave. It was a warrior's grave, complete with a sword and other military equipment. But the real kicker, the bones in the grave belonged to a woman. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean she was a shield maiden. She might have been a high-ranking woman honored with a warrior's burial, or the grave goods might have been symbolic. But it does add another layer to the mystery, like a sprinkle of cinnamon on your morning latte. So how do we reconcile these conflicting views? Well, the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. It's likely that women did participate in Viking warfare to some extent, whether as actual fighters or in supporting roles. But the image of a shield maiden, as fierce and formidable as any male warrior, might be more myth than reality, more Lagertha than historical fact. But then again, who's to say? History, after all, is often more complex and surprising than we can imagine. In the end, whether or not shield maidens existed in the literal sense, they certainly exist in the realm of ideas and inspiration. They represent the power and potential of women, the ability to stand shoulder to shoulder with men in the face of adversity. And perhaps that's the most important thing. The next time you're facing a tough challenge, think of the shield maidens. Channel their strength, their courage, their determination. Who knows, there might be a bit of shield maiden in all of us. Imagine you're a Viking, but not just any Viking, you're a shield maiden. You're as fierce as a storm at sea, and your sword arm is as steady as the most seasoned warrior. But here's the catch. Historically, we're not entirely sure if you existed. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not questioning your existence. It's just that historians, those scholarly folks who love to dig into the past, are still debating the reality of your life. But let's take a step back for a moment and talk about a Viking woman of undeniable existence. Let's meander over to Birka, Sweden, where a grave known as BJ 581 was discovered. And who was inside this grave? A woman, along with a sword, an axe, arrows, and 2 horses. Talk about going out in style. But wait, there's more. This wasn't just any woman. Her bones suggested a life of physical labor, more in line with a warrior's lifestyle than a housewife's. So, what does this tell us? Could she have been a shield maiden, a female warrior of legend? Well, that's the $1,000,000 question, or given inflation, maybe it's a $1 billion question now. Now, I know what you're thinking. A woman warrior, how does that fit with what I know about Vikings? Well, you're not alone in that thought. The discovery of BJ 581 threw a spanner into the works of our understanding of Viking society. The idea that women could be warriors was, for a long time, dismissed as merely the stuff of sagas, like the Volsunga saga or the Hervarar saga, where women like Brynhildr, Valkyrie turned mortal, wielded weapons with the best of them. But here's the thing about sagas. They're a bit like the soap operas of their time, filled with drama, plot twists, and larger-than-life characters. So, how much truth they hold is a matter of debate. But BJ 581, well, that's a different story. That's concrete, undeniable, archaeological evidence. It's like finding a medieval memory foam mattress in a peasant's hut, you know, something that just doesn't fit with what we thought we knew. Now, does this mean every Viking woman was a shield maiden, swinging a sword and charging into battle? Probably not. Just like not everyone today is an astronaut or a movie star, not every woman in the Viking Age would have been a warrior. But what it does suggest is that some women could have been warriors. And that, my friends, is a game changer. Of course, it's not all about battles and bloodshed. Being a shield maiden might also have been about status, about the respect and authority that came with being a warrior. Maybe that's why Our Lady in BJ 581 was buried with her weapons and horses. It was a reflection of her standing in life, a final salute to her strength and bravery. So, what's the takeaway from all this? Well, history is a lot like a puzzle. Sometimes you think you've got it all figured out, only to find a piece that just doesn't fit. And when that happens, you have to rethink everything you thought you knew. You have to be open to new possibilities, new interpretations. So, were there shield maidens in the Viking Age? Did women wield swords and fight alongside men? I don't know, and neither do the historians. But what I do know is this. The discovery of BJ 581 has shown us that the past is full of surprises, and that the stories we tell about it, whether in sagas or in history books, are never the whole picture. And that, my friends, is what makes history so fascinating and so endlessly captivating. So imagine you're out on the battlefield, right? You're a Viking warrior, courageous, fearsome, with a beard that would make any hipster green with envy. You're holding your trusty shield and sword, ready to face your enemies. But then, in the midst of the chaos and clamor, you spot something that makes you do a double take. There's a warrior fighting alongside you, equally fierce, equally fearsome. But wait a minute, is that a braid swinging from beneath her helmet? This, my friends, is the legendary Shieldmaiden, a female warrior from the bygone Viking era. She's tough, she's skilled, and yes, she fights just as hard as the guys. Right now, you're probably picturing Lagertha from the TV series Vikings, a kick-ass shield maiden who's just as comfortable wielding a sword as she is raising her children. Or maybe your mind's gone to the world of video games, to the female protagonist in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, who charges into battle with all the ferocity of the Viking warriors of yore. But where did this image of the shield maiden come from? Well, it's been around for centuries, steeped in the folklore and mythology of Nordic culture. These women warriors were often associated with the Valkyries, mythical beings who chose the slain warriors on the battlefield and escorted them to the afterlife. And let's not forget the sagas, those epic narratives of heroes and heroines, of gods and monsters. These tales are filled with female characters who embody the spirit of the shield maiden. Take Brynhildr, for instance, a Valkyrie from the Volsunga saga. She's sent to Earth to marry a mortal man, but she's no damsel in distress. No, sir. Brynhildr is a tough cookie, a warrior woman who knows her way around a sword. Now, you might be wondering, did shield maidens actually exist? Well, that's a question for the historians, and let's just say the jury's still out. There's no concrete evidence that women fought alongside men in Viking Age Scandinavia, but there are a few clues that suggest they might have. For instance, the Byzantine historian John Skylitzes, kind of like the TMZ of his time, reported that women fought for the Danes at the Battle of Bravelir in 750. Then, there's the Viking Age grave BJ 581 in Birka, Sweden. This grave didn't just contain the remains of a woman. It also had a sword, a spear, and other military equipment. It's like finding an ancient gym bag, complete with protein shake and sweaty workout clothes. Of course, these findings don't prove the existence of shield maidens, but they do suggest that women might have had a more active role in Viking warfare than we previously thought. And really, isn't that the beauty of history? It's a never-ending puzzle with pieces that sometimes fit, sometimes don't, and sometimes make you question everything you thought you knew. So, were there shield maidens in the Viking Age? Did women fight alongside men? Did they wield swords and shields with the same skill and ferocity? We may never know for sure. But one thing's certain, the Viking Age was a time of warriors and battles, of sagas and legends. And in that world, there's definitely room for the shield maiden, a woman as tough as any man, as brave as any hero, and as fierce as any Viking warrior. Now, when you think of a Viking, you might imagine a burly, bearded man wielding a heavy axe, right? But what if I told you that some of these fearsome warriors were actually women? That's right. We're talking about the legendary shield maidens, the female fighters of Nordic folklore and Norse mythology. In the world of the Vikings, the shield maiden was the equivalent of a modern-day action heroine. She was fearless, skilled in battle, and every bit as tough as her male counterparts. But instead of machine guns and high-speed chases, our Viking heroine fought with swords and shields. Her battlefield, a grim, bloody landscape of clashing metal and war cries. One of the most famous shield maidens in the sagas of old is Brynhildr. Picture Wonder Woman with a Viking twist. Brynhildr was a Valkyrie sent to Earth, destined to marry a mortal man. But she wasn't just about love and romance. She was a formidable warrior, too, fighting in battles with the same ferocity as the toughest Viking men. But let's be real. The existence of shield maidens is still a hot topic among historians. Concrete proof. We don't have it. But there are whispers and hints that suggest women may have had a more prominent role in Viking warfare than we once believed. Take the case of the Battle of Bravelir, for instance. John Skylitzes, a Byzantine historian, mentions that women fought alongside the Danes. Then there's the intriguing story of a Viking Age grave in Birka, Sweden. The bones resting there belonged to a woman, but the grave also held a sword, a spear, and other military equipment. It's like finding a purse with a lipstick, a compact mirror, and just a casual broadsword. In popular culture, the idea of the shield maiden has been embraced wholeheartedly. Film, TV, video games, you name it, and you'll find a shield maiden kicking ass and taking names. One of the most popular portrayals is Lagertha from the TV series Vikings. If you're not familiar with her, Lagertha is like the Viking version of Lara Croft, minus the acrobatics, and plus some serious shield skills. The show portrays her as a skilled warrior, a loving mother, and a cunning strategist, a woman who can fight, nurture, and outwit her enemies, all in a day's work. But does Lagertha's portrayal add to the myth and folklore of shield maidens? Well, she does embody the traits of bravery, strength, and a readiness to fight. But it's important to remember that she's a fictional character, and her story is shaped by the needs of modern storytelling more than historical accuracy. The video game Assassin's Creed Valhalla also features a female protagonist, a shield maiden and Viking warrior. It's like playing a historical RPG where you can raid monasteries, explore a beautifully rendered Nordic landscape, and yes, fight like a shield maiden. So what does all this mean? The concept of shield maidens, a woman as resilient as any man, as brave as any hero, and as fierce as any Viking warrior, is a fascinating one. It challenges our perceptions of the past, of gender roles, and of the very nature of warfare. But as with many things in history, the truth remains elusive, hidden behind layers of myth, speculation, and the passing of time. And as we delve deeper into the world of the Vikings, we find that it's not just about battles and bloodshed. It's about people, their lives, their stories. It's about understanding a time and culture vastly different from our own, yet strangely familiar in its human complexities. And in that world, there's definitely a place for the shield maiden, whether real or imagined, historical or mythological. Because really, isn't the essence of history about exploring possibilities, questioning assumptions, and finding connections between the past and the present? Whether we're talking about shield maidens, Viking battles, or medieval beds made from stuff that used to be alive, history is a never-ending journey of discovery, wonder, and a fair bit of head-scratching. So were there shield maidens in the Viking Age? We may never know for sure. But isn't it fun to imagine a world where women wielded swords and shields with the same skill and ferocity as men? A world where Ladritha isn't just a character on a TV show, but a living, breathing embodiment of a culture's ideals, fears, and aspirations. And as you drift off to sleep tonight, maybe you'll dream of Viking battles, of clashing swords and thundering shields, of women warriors standing tall and fierce on the battlefield. Because in the realm of dreams, as in the realm of history, anything is possible. Let's take a leap from our regular world and land into the world of video games, specifically the icy, Viking-filled landscapes of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. In this game, you can play as Eivor, a Viking raider who, if you so choose, can be a woman. Now, Eivor isn't just a Viking woman, she is a shield maiden. You may wonder, what's a shield maiden? Picture a Viking warrior, fierce, brave, equipped with a sword and shield. Now, picture that warrior as a woman. That's your shield maiden. These female fighters from Norse folklore and mythology are the stuff of legends, their stories woven into sagas like the threads of a finely crafted tapestry. But are these tales just that, tales? Or could there have been real shield maidens, women who fought alongside men in the bloody battles of the Viking Age? The debate rages on among historians and scholars, like a never-ending game of tug-of-war, with archaeological evidence and written records forming the rope pulled back and forth. The Byzantine historian John Skylitzes, for instance, claimed that women fought on the side of the Danes at the Battle of Bravelir in 750. And then there's that intriguing grave in Birka, Sweden, BJ 581, where a woman was found buried with a sword and other military equipment. Is this solid proof of a woman warrior, a real-life shield maiden? Or could there be other explanations? Maybe she was a military strategist, or perhaps the weapons were merely symbolic. like trying to find the end of a rainbow. The truth seems to keep shifting and slipping away. But let's set aside the debate for a moment and return to Eivor, our virtual shield maiden. In the realm of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, there's no doubt about her status as a female warrior. She fights with the strength and ferocity of any man, proving her mettle in every battle. And it's not just about physical prowess. Eivor is a leader, a strategist, a respected member of her community. Many of us may never have heard of a shield maiden before encountering Eivor. And that's the power of video games. They can introduce us to new concepts, new worlds, new possibilities. They can shape our perceptions, influence our understanding, and even redefine our reality. To many players, Eivor is not just a character in a game. She's a symbol of female strength and empowerment. She's a reminder that women, too, can be warriors. Now, that's not to say that every woman should pick up a sword and shield, although, if that's your thing, more power to you. But it's about recognizing that women have always been, and will always be, a vital part of history and society. In the same way that we obsess over the specs of our gaming consoles, processor speed, resolution, frame rate, we should also pay attention to the stories they tell, the characters they introduce, and the perspectives they offer. Because just as Eivor is more than just a pixelated figure on a screen, history is more than just dates and events. It's a rich tapestry of human experiences, woven together in a complex pattern of triumphs, struggles, innovations, and changes. So, the next time you find yourself in the midst of a virtual battle, guiding Eivor through the snowy landscapes of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, remember the shield maidens. Remember the sagas, the debates, the mysteries. Remember that history is not just about the past. It's also about how we interpret it, how we connect with it, and how we carry it forward into the future. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see Eivor and all the other shield maidens, real or imagined, in a new light. Not just as warriors, but as women who dared to break the mold, who challenged the norms, and who continue to inspire us, one virtual battle at a time. So, were there real shield maidens? We may never know for sure, but in the realm of video games, and in our imaginations, they're as real as it gets. Imagine you are a fierce Viking shield maiden, not just a character in a video game or a legend in a saga, but a real, living, breathing woman in the Viking age. Your day starts with the break of dawn, not because you are awakened by the shrill sound of an alarm on your smartphone, but because the rooster crows, signaling the start of a new day. You rise from your bed, a simple pallet made of straw or hay, and not the plush cloud of memory foam that we might be used to today. You don your armor, a mix of leather and chainmail. It may be heavy, but it's not as cumbersome as trying to put on skinny jeans fresh out of the dryer. The term shield maiden is no mere nickname. It's an embodiment of bravery, strength, and a willingness to fight. Much like how you would associate Spider-Man with New York, vigilance, and the occasional witty one-liner. Take Brynhildr, for example. She's a Valkyrie sent to Earth to marry a mortal man, but she's not just a love-struck maiden waiting for her lover to come home. No, She's a skilled warrior, joining the fray, fighting in battles, kind of like Wonder Woman. If Wonder Woman traded her invisible jet for a longship and her lasso for a good old-fashioned Viking sword. Now, historians and scholars might argue about the historical existence of shield maidens, the way some people might argue about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. The evidence is a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. Some pieces fit perfectly. Others are a bit more ambiguous. The Byzantine historian John Skylitzes, for instance, mentions women fighting on the side of the Danes at the Battle of Bravelir in 750. Imagine that women warriors, shield maidens, charging into battle. It's like seeing Joan jet rock out on stage in a world that expected her to be more like Olivia Newton-John. Then there's the grave BJ 581 in Birka, Sweden. Now, this isn't your average grave. It held the remains of a woman buried with a sword and other military equipment. It's like finding a gaming console, complete with controllers and a headset, in someone's room. You'd naturally assume they were a gamer, right? In popular culture, shield maidens are the rock stars of the Viking Age. Take Lagertha from the TV series Vikings, for example. She's not just a housewife, tending to chores and waiting for her husband to come home. She's a shield maiden, a skilled warrior, and a leader. It's like watching Beyoncé on stage, belting out single ladies. You instantly know she's not one to be underestimated. And let's not forget the video game, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you can step into the boots of a shield maiden. It's a far cry from the usual damsels in distress or sidekick roles that women often get in video games. Instead, you're the hero of the story, swinging your axe and making your mark on the world, kind of like Lara Croft, if she swapped her dual pistols for a Viking sword and shield. So were there real shield maidens? Well, that's a question as tricky as trying to figure out why cats love cardboard boxes so much. We may never know for sure. But what we do know is that, in our imaginations, and in the realm of video games, film, and television, they're as real and as important as any male Viking warrior. And they're more than just warriors. They're women who dared to break the mold, who challenged the norms, who showed us that you can be a maiden and a shield at the same time. They remind us of the power of women, not just in battle, but in life. So the next time you pick up that game controller or watch a Viking saga, remember the shield maidens. Remember that history is not just about dates and events, but about people, stories, and the lessons we can draw from them. Even if those lessons come from a Viking shield maiden charging into battle. Imagine you're a Viking shield maiden, a kind of medieval Wonder Woman, if you will, but instead of an invisible jet, you've got a sturdy wooden ship, and your lasso of truth is a hefty sword that tells its own brutal tales. Your job description isn't just about being a warrior. Oh no, it's far more multidimensional. You're a protector, a symbol of power, and a breaker of those pesky societal norms that just don't resonate with your warrior spirit. If you think of the Viking Age as a sort of Game of Thrones meets reality TV, shield maidens can be seen as the contestants who defy the rules and challenge the status quo. They're the ones who say, hey, I can swing a sword and protect my people just as well as any man. And by the way, I can do it in a stunningly fashionable chainmail ensemble. These fierce females were not just about brawn and bravery. They embodied a willingness to step into roles traditionally held by men, hence challenging the conventional gender norms of their time. It's like if Beyoncé decided to quit music and become a pro wrestler. It would certainly raise some eyebrows, but who would dare to question her ability to conquer this new arena? When it comes to the historical existence of shield maidens, we're left with more questions than answers, like a detective novel that's missing its final chapter. The Byzantine historian John Skylitzes mentions women fighting in the Battle of Bravelir. It's as if he casually dropped this bombshell in his medieval version of a Twitter update. Then there's the mysterious Viking Age grave in Birka, Sweden, containing the remains of a woman buried with a sword and other military gear. Could she have been a shield maiden? We may never know for certain, but the possibility is tantalizingly intriguing, kind of like the mystery of why socks always disappear in the wash. In the realm of popular culture, shield maidens are more than just an intriguing concept. They're a force to be reckoned with. Picture Ladritha from the TV series Vikings, a character who juggles motherhood and leadership while also being a warrior. She's like a medieval multitasking superheroine, proving that you can rule the roost and the battlefield. In the video game Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you can step into the boots of a Viking shield maiden and experience the thrill of battle, all from the comfort of your couch. So, what do these stories of shield maidens tell us? Besides the fact that the Viking Age was a lot more progressive than we might assume, they remind us that history isn't just a laundry list of dates and facts, but a rich tapestry of stories that challenge, inspire, and make us ponder the possibilities. They highlight the fact that women, even in the most patriarchal societies, have always found ways to break the mold and assert their power. They're a testament to the enduring spirit of female resilience and the ability to challenge and redefine societal expectations, a spirit that continues to empower women today. Remember these shield maidens the next time you're faced with a challenge or when you're questioning societal norms. They were women who dared to be different, who embraced their strength, and who proved that being a maiden didn't mean you couldn't also be a shield. In the end, the story of shield maidens is not just about battles and sword fights. It's about challenging the status quo, embracing your inner strength, and rewriting the rules. It's a story that continues to resonate today, reminding us that, when it comes to breaking barriers, the spirit of a shield maiden is alive in all of us. So you're a Viking shield maiden, but not just any old warrior. You're a woman of legend, a heroine from the sagas of old, a symbol of strength and defiance that somehow still resonates in our modern world. Imagine waking up each morning in Viking Age Scandinavia, slinging on your battle-worn armor and grabbing your trusty shield and sword. Now, that's a morning routine that puts our coffee and cereal to shame, wouldn't you say? Of course, Viking life wasn't all about swinging swords and charging into battle. There was farming, trading, and sea voyages to uncharted lands. But let's focus on the exciting stuff, the Shieldmaidens. You see, Shieldmaidens hold a special place in our hearts and our history. Despite our fascination with them, it's worth noting that their historical existence is still hotly debated among historians and scholars. Now, let's get this straight. Were there female warriors fighting alongside the men in Viking Age Scandinavia? We can't say for certain. Some archaeological findings suggest that women may have had a hand in warfare, but concrete evidence is scarce. However, the absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, as they say. Take, for example, the grave BJ 581 in Birka, Sweden. Here, archaeologists found a woman buried with a sword, a spear, and 2 horses, not exactly the usual accessories for a Viking Age woman. Could she have been a warrior, a shield maiden perhaps? Or maybe she was simply a big fan of the military fashion trend. We may never know for sure, but it certainly makes for fascinating speculation. Then there's the Byzantine historian John Skylitzes, who wrote that women fought alongside the men in the Battle of Bravelir in 750. Unfortunately, he didn't specify if these women were indeed shield maidens or just very enthusiastic supporters. But let's put the historical debate aside for a moment and delve into the realm of myth and folklore. This is where shield maidens truly come alive. In the legendary sagas, shield maidens, like Brynhildr from the Volsunga saga, are depicted as brave, strong, and willing to fight. They embody the spirit of defiance, resilience, and empowerment, making them an inspiration to many. This fascination with shield maidens hasn't faded over the centuries. If anything, it has only grown stronger. You'll find them in movies, television shows, and video games. Lagertha from the TV show Vikings is a perfect example. She's a shield maiden, a warrior, and a ruler, a triple threat, if you will. Meanwhile, in the virtual world of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you can step into the shoes of a Viking shield maiden and embark on epic quests. It's like a historical reenactment, only with less mud and more button mashing. Why do these warrior women continue to captivate us? Perhaps it's because they challenge the traditional roles and expectations. They represent a breaking away from the norm, a refusal to be confined by societal rules. So why do we love shield maidens? Maybe it's their strength, their bravery, or their spirit of defiance. Or maybe it's simply because they're cool. After all, who wouldn't want to be a sword-wielding, battle-ready Viking shield maiden? They remind us that it's okay to challenge the status quo, to embrace our own strength, and to rewrite the rules. And that's a message that never gets old, don't you think? In the end, the story of shield maidens isn't just about battles and warfare. It's about courage, resilience, and empowerment. It's a story that has endured through the ages and continues to inspire us today. Because when it comes to breaking barriers, the spirit of a shield maiden is alive in all of us. Now, how about that for a bedtime story? Imagine living as a Viking shield maiden, the female warrior of Nordic folklore and Norse mythology. Your days are filled with training, preparation, and occasionally the thrill of battle. You're known for your bravery, your martial skills, and your willingness to fight, a fierce and formidable force on the battlefield, standing shoulder to shoulder with your male counterparts. You're not just a warrior, though you're also a symbol of defiance, a challenge to the traditional roles and expectations of your time. Now, let's not confuse shield maidens with the mythical Valkyries, those winged women who decide who dies in battle and escorts them to the afterlife. While the Valkyries have their own charm, who doesn't love a good chooser of the slain, right? Shield maidens were their own brand of awesome. They were the down-to-earth, sword in hand, ready to fight kind of warriors. You may have heard of Brynhildr, one of the most famous shield maidens in Norse mythology, featured in the Volsunga saga. Picture her as a medieval superwoman, a Valkyrie sent to Earth to marry a mortal man, but also a skilled warrior who fights in battles. Talk about multitasking. Now the question begs, did shield maidens really exist, or were they simply a figment of folklore and imagination? Historians and scholars have been debating this for years. While there's no Instagram post or YouTube video to prove their existence, such a pity, right? There are a few intriguing hints. Take the Byzantine historian John Skylitzes, for instance, who recorded that women fought on the side of the Danes at the Battle of Bravelir in 750. Or the Viking Age grave BJ 581 in Birka, Sweden, where a woman was buried with a sword and other military equipment. Not exactly your typical lady accessories, are they? In modern times, shield maidens have become pop culture icons. Think Lagertha from the TV series Vikings, or the female protagonist in the video game Assassin's Creed Valhalla. These characters represent the spirit of defiance, strength, and bravery that was characteristic of shield maidens, and they continue to captivate audiences worldwide. Why do we find the idea of shield maidens so intriguing? Perhaps it's their audacity to shatter norms, their refusal to be confined by societal rules. They embody a breaking away from the expected, a life lived on their own terms. Who can resist the allure of a sword-wielding, battle-ready Viking shield maiden? They remind us that it's okay to challenge the status quo, to embrace our inner strength, and to rewrite the rules, a timeless message that resonates with people across the ages. But the story of shield maidens isn't just about warfare and rebellion. It's also about courage, resilience, and empowerment. It's about standing up for oneself and others, about defying the odds, about leaving a mark on the world, all things that we aspire to, even today. In essence, the spirit of a shield maiden is alive in all of us. It's the part of us that refuses to back down in the face of adversity, that stands up for what we believe in, that fights for what matters most. So, while we may not wield swords or charge into battle, we can all tap into our inner shield maiden, can't we? So as you lay in your cozy bed, contemplating your modern battles, be they the morning traffic, an unruly spreadsheet, or an overflowing laundry basket, remember the shield maidens. Remember their courage, their resilience, their defiance. And know that, just like them, you have the power to challenge, to defy, to conquer. Now, doesn't that make for a great bedtime story? Our journey through history today brings us to the Shieldmaidens, those legendary women warriors from the Viking Age, as fierce as they are fascinating. Picture them, not in the Hollywood sense with perfectly braided hair and improbably clean chainmail, but as they likely were, raw, real, and remarkably tough. I mean, you'd have to be, right, to live in an era of biting cold, endless battles, and a diet that could generously be described as protein-heavy. The concept of shield maidens is as intriguing as it is controversial. They are often depicted as fearless fighters, standing shoulder to shoulder with their male counterparts on the battlefield. These women were not mere damsels in distress, but were active participants in warfare, much like that one friend we all have who insists on solving disputes with impromptu wrestling matches. A little intense, but you can't help admiring their spirit. Our knowledge of shield maidens comes primarily from the sagas, epic tales that were the Netflix dramas of their day. Characters like Brynhildr, a Valkyrie who chose to marry a mortal man, showcased not only the strength and bravery of a true shield maiden, but also a degree of independence that was pretty avant-garde for a time when most women were expected to be more seen and not heard, and definitely not seen hacking down enemies on a battlefield. The existence of shield maidens, however, is a hot topic for historical debate, sort of like arguing whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza, but with more swords and slightly less passion. While there's no definitive proof of their existence, there are tantalizing hints. For instance, the Byzantine historian John Skylitz's mentioned women fighting in the Battle of Bravelir in 750, though, to be fair, he might have just been trying to spice up his history book. Then there's the archaeological evidence. The grave BJ 581 in Birka, Sweden, held a woman buried with a sword and other military equipment. Now, she might have just been an enthusiastic reenactor, or perhaps she was a genuine female warrior. Either way, it's a tantalizing clue that lends credence to the shield maiden tales. Shield maidens have found a second life in popular culture, featuring in films, TV shows, and video games. Lagertha from the TV series Vikings, for instance, is a shield maiden who could probably teach modern-day MMA fighters a thing or two. And let's not forget the video game Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you can virtually step into the boots of a Viking warrior lady, which is arguably safer and less chilly than the real thing. Looking beyond the myths and the debates, the enduring appeal of shield maidens lies in what they represent. They are symbols of courage, resilience, and defiance in a time when such qualities were not often attributed to women. They are the embodiment of empowerment, a testament to the power of women to stand their ground, to fight, and to carve their own path, much like that time you wrestled the last tub of ice cream from a fellow shopper during a supermarket sale. So as you lay there, cozy and warm, perhaps thinking about the piles of laundry you have to conquer, or that work presentation you need to slay, remember the shield maidens. Their stories are not just about warfare and rebellion, but also about courage and determination, qualities we can all tap into even if our battles involve spreadsheets instead of swords. Who knows? Maybe the spirit of a shield maiden lives in you, waiting to take on the world, one traffic jam, spreadsheet, or laundry pile at a time. And doesn't that make for a marvelous bedtime story? So, sleep tight, dear listener, and dream of shield maidens. Their strength, their courage, their resilience. May it inspire you as you face your own battles tomorrow.